It was a less than ideal end of season for the Ultra Boys in Canada. Third champs, top 8 at the Esports World Cup, and then silence. Losing 2 cornerstone players, your MVP and your pace setter. That can break a team's identity overnight. For Toronto, that was their off-season headline. Scrap, your MVP, gone. Envoy, your selfless SMG, joining him. So, what happens when your franchise pieces walk out of the door and head straight into the camp of your rivals? You don't just lose your talent, you lose your system. The chemistry that built one of the most disciplined, well-structured teams in the league was dismantled by contract breakdowns and timings. And if that wasn't enough, one angry border agent made sure their season ended with more paperwork than trophies. A dynasty that quite never materialized, but hey, they never stopped trying. They had to make a move. The roster core that once looked untouchable had fractured, but not from poor results, from frustration. With Insight and Kleenex rumored to test the waters with other CDL teams, Toronto Ultra were in full rebuild mode. Scrap even said it himself. If the contract was more favourable, I'd have stayed. You don't lose players like that easily unless something behind the scenes has gone wrong, right? Trust me, I know. Enter Joe Deceives, Big Joey D. Fresh off his great year with LAT, he's a fast trading, super quick SMG with a chip on his shoulder. And Beans, the British AR talent on a redemption arc after a rough year with the Boston Breach. Together, they represented risk and potential. A team of redemption stories stitched together north of the border. Expectations were cautiously high. Top 4 potential. Grand finals contention if they could gel and have that chemistry early on. Their mission was actually quite simple. Rebuild without losing the Ultra identity, the Ultra structure, the Ultra teamwork, and the Ultra composure that they have shown over the multiple years. But that's the tricky part about rebuilds. You don't just replace players and hope things were the same as they were. The question for 2025 was simple. It's not can they win again, but can they feel like Ultra again? So, did the rebuild work? Let's roll into Major 1 and find out if Toronto's new blood could survive their early turbulence. Wow. Toronto started the year like a team reborn. A 3-1 win over the fellow title contenders FaZe. A statement match that nobody saw coming, right? Let's be honest. All of us coming into the season were thinking FaZe were just going to steamroll this new Toronto Ultra team. They then had a Map 5 thriller in the All-Canadian Derby against Vancouver Surge, and they ended up clutching that 3-2. They then played Miami, beat them. They then played Falcons, beat them. 4 straight series wins before the mid-season break. Undefeated, confident, and looking clean. Toronto Ultra weren't just winning. They were convincing. Composure in the round 11s. Discipline in the respawns. Beans posting his best KD since joining the league. When the dust settled, they were 6-1 heading into Major 1. Second in the overall standings And that was the kind of start that got everyone believing. Maybe, just maybe, the rebuild is already done. And the stage couldn't have been better. Major 1, Madrid, in Spain. Technically, it was their home event, and technically, it was the home crowd for beans, insight, and Kleenex. But most importantly, this was a chance to prove that their 6-1 record wasn't a fluke. They started strong again. They dismantled Vancouver 3-0. Smooth, efficient. There was no waste in their performance. But then came FaZe. And for the first time this year, questions appeared. FaZe swept them 3-0. 3 of the 4 Ultra players finished with a negative KD. But the numbers didn't tell the whole story. Map 1, Hardpoint. A single point away from flipping momentum. That 1 point could have changed everything. Instead, it broke them. Execution fell apart under pressure, and their cracks widened.
Rotation. What does he find? A teammate. You're just going to take out Kleenex. You got 5 seconds remaining here on the point, and behind that, you're going to try to push this out and go. Sim streaking on 6 straight, on 35, looking to get to the back quickly. You've got numbers here for the moment. If you were Atlanta FaZe, Draw's able to pluck him out of the front. Now you've got spawns. 17 needed for the win. The play clock maybe going to come into it as well, as we've got 17 seconds left. How does everybody rise? And they spawn in the back. Everything looking good now for Ultra. The clock continues to tick. They're going to get into the point, though. They've got to get back into the lead. Lead change now. Do they play outside of the point? That's going to be the call. Number 2, and Joe Deceiv's going to back out of it. The play clock's going to be everything now. FaZe sitting it forward, able to take down 2. Joe Deceive with one of his own. He's on point 3. You get in, and now you're back in front. FaZe winning! FaZe winning! Awesome! FaZe winning! Oh my God!
So, the questions started to form. Can Toronto be contenders, or are they just competitors? Dropping into the losers bracket, their response would define them. Against a red-hot Carolina team, it came down to another Game 5. They fell 2-3. They bowed out at top 6. This was far from their online dominance, including, uncharacteristically, 2 search and destroy losses. They had clear and heavy vetoes the entire stage. A red card hardpoint and Skyline S&D. When you avoid your weaknesses long enough, they come back and they find you and they haunt you against the very best. Toronto walked away from Spain with more questions than answers. They had the start, they quite clearly have the structure, and they had the stats. But when the lights came up, the rebuild felt unfinished. The chemistry wasn't broken, but it wasn't complete either. After the disappointment in Spain, Ultra needed a bounce back. But Major 2 didn't start the way that they wanted. A 3-0 sweep at the hands of Cloud9 New York, the talks started immediately. Ping, connection, exit lag, the usual storm that brews after a loss like that. The excuses from the community were loud, but Toronto's response was even louder. Next match, they shut down Carolina 3-1. On a red card hardpoint, no less. The very map that they had vetoed the entire stage of Major 1. Then Boston, 3-2. It looked like their momentum had been restored. But such with Call of Duty, not for long. Up next, Los Angeles Thieves. Scrap and Envoy's new home. A revenge match with emotion written all over it. The scoreline said 3-0, but it wasn't as convincing as that. Ultra lost the red card hardpoint by 8 points. They lost protocol control in the final round. They were close. Painfully close. But there's always a silver lining in situations like this. Joe Deceives shone through the loss with a standout series. But the cracks got even bigger. 3 teammates went negative. The question was, could Toronto Ultra keep up with championship titans? The talent was there. The team synergy didn't feel like it was there. That is going to be the balance that defines their Major 2 journey. Heading into Minor 2, they rebuilt their momentum fast. 3-0 against Optic Texas. A statement win. But so far this Major, in typical fashion, 1 step forward, 2 steps back. The Battle of Canada brought them back down to earth ASAP. A 3-0 loss to Vancouver Surge, who just added Neptune to the roster. Still, Toronto found their groove again. A win against the Falcons set the tone, and they rode that momentum to beat Texas again and avenge their loss to Vancouver Surge in a Map 5 Classic. Finishing the stage 5-2 overall. Slow start, strong finish. Seemingly, it felt like it was the Ultra way. Texas, LAN, Major 2. Their first test was Cloud9 again. They dropped early into the losers bracket, and everyone wondered, was this going to be Major 1 all over again? Because again, they fell 3-0. But this one hurt differently. 2 points off winning in the hardpoint, round 11 S&D, final round in control. This was one of the closest 3-0 sweeps that you will ever see. But not this time. They bounced straight back. LAG 3-0. Texas 3-1. Boston 3-0. 3 straight wins. They looked reborn. Round 4. LAT. Grand Finals potential. Could Ultra break the contenders' ceiling? They did. And they did so violently.
Subside showing up in one of the best series of Joe Deceives' career.
They have
Kleenex with the 3, the dagger.
They're gone. The LA Thieves from gods to God save me. Wait! 0.3! Oh my word! The curse continues. Another 3-0. Our first seed team.
3-0. Every map was decisive. Joe Deceives, their superstar, dropped a 1.47 series KD. All 4 players, positive. It didn't look like LAT stood a chance. For a moment, they looked like a championship team again. Fluid, confident, deadly. But in the next round, the Battle of Canada, it brought them back down again. Facing Surge again. And guess what? They lost 3-1. They took the Protocol S&D, but they fell short on the respawns. 3 out of 4 of their players went negative. Top 3, a Sunday appearance, progress on paper. But the same lingering questions remained. Against championship contenders, who picks this team up when the series is close, when the pressure is on? They found momentum, they found form, but did they have that missing piece to close games? Major 2 was their turning point. A team learning how to win again on LAN and how to lose without collapsing. The rebuild was working, but the ceiling was still not in sight for this team. Or at least not in reach. They started the Major 3 online qualifiers with a bang. A 3-2 nail-biter against the reigning champions FaZe. They were down 2-1 in that series. They showed championship winning resilience. They took the Hacienda hardpoint and Map 5 Protocol S&D. It was another Joey D clinic. But still, they were outslayed. Cell dropped a 1.23 overall KD this series. The same questions lingered. Could this team outgun the Elite, or were they still winning on structure and teamwork alone? Because you need talent with teamwork to win championships. Then came Boston. This was a 3-0 loss, but this one was wrapped in controversy. Ultra forfeited vault control after the server issues made the map unplayable. The entire series looked unplayable. It was one of them series where it never really felt like it happened. They shook it off. Their focus was simple. Control what you can, win the rest. Normality returned, and Ultra caught fire. A 3-2 win over LAT, a 3-1 win over Miami, a 3-1 win over LAG. They weren't just winning, they were beating title contenders. FaZe, LAT, Miami, all checked off the list. It felt like the breakthrough was finally coming. But even then, whispers still remained. Could they really match the raw slaying of FaZe, LAT, or even this new look Vancouver team? The map scores looked convincing, but their kill differentials told another story. Major 3 in Florida. And this is where everything changed. Before they could even play a map, disaster. Beans, their starting AR, who was on riding momentum from this online portion, denied at the border. In stepped Mercules, an untested rookie brought in last minute. No LAN experience, very limited LAN experience, no chemistry with this team, just raw gunny and a chance to prove something. Ultra suddenly had no fourth. They started slow. Things weren't looking so good. Losing 3-1 to Miami. It looked like their story might end in winners round 1. But nobody, not even Ultra, knew that they uncovered one of the biggest hidden gems in Call of Duty. From that loss onward, everything changed. They took down LAG 3-0. They took down Minnesota 3-1. Boston 3-1. Then a revenge 3-2 against Miami in the rematch. Mercules was headlining every series. Top fragging, leading in engagements, playing with zero fear. Even in their 3-1 loss to Vancouver, he dropped superstar numbers. The rookie had turned into what was a stopgap into a storyline. The team even said it themselves. It felt easy to play with him. The chemistry, the flow, the aggression, it all clicked. For the first time all year, Ultra didn't look like they were searching for identity. It felt like they found it. By accident. Thought they had found their missing piece, he was gone. Contract talks with Mercules broke down. Toronto offered him a sub spot instead of a starting contract, and he walked straight into the arms of Optic Gaming. And with that, Ultra brought back Beans. Their story had come full circle, but the question was, could they recapture that same spark without the rookie who changed everything? On paper, it looked fine. Wins against Carolina and Cloud9, both 3-1. A clean 3-0 sweep against Minnesota. The fundamentals were still there. Map control, teamwork, discipline. For a moment, it felt like Ultra were back on track. But old cracks had a way of reopening. The Battle of Canada, their rivalry with Vancouver, ended 3-1 against them. And then came the real test of fate. Mercules, their old teammate, was now wearing green. Texas dismantled Ultra 3-0. And the stat line said it all. They finished the split 3-2. 6th seed going into Major 4. Not a disaster, but not what you want as a title contender and a title hopeful. Major 4 began the same way as Major 3 against Mercules. And again, he came back to haunt them. Optic 3-1 against Toronto. The two hard points weren't even close. It was a carpet of red on the scoreboard. Ultra dropped into the losers bracket again. This was another test of their resilience. So, first up, Carolina. A map 5, round 11 thriller. Not exactly the dominant statement they needed, but they survived. A win is a win, and the hard points looked solid. Then came LAG, a 3-1 win, capped off by one of the best hardpoint comebacks I have ever seen. Wow, I was mind blown. Down 80 points, full setup, flawless rotations needed. They cannot make a single mistake. That single map summed up Ultra's resilience, if not their consistency. But when LAT showed up in the next round, their mirage broke. Could they finally overcome a contender in the big moments? They couldn't. A 3-1 loss, even though 3 of the 4 Ultra players finished positive. They lost both hardpoints again. Insight looked disconnected from this team. He posted their lowest damage per minute on the roster, and questions on social media started to swirl. Top 6. A familiar finish, but a frustrating one. Because this wasn't a collapse. This felt like a stagnation. And in Call of Duty, stagnation is one of the slowest ways to lose. Mercules was gone. Beans was back. And Toronto was stuck in the middle. Too structured to fall apart, but it felt like they were too limited to break through their ceiling again. All eyes now turned to champs, and the question that had followed them all: could Ultra turn potential into proof before it was too late? The same issues reared its ugly head again for Toronto at champs. A team built on structure and control. The same cracks showing up at champs. Cracks that not even a 1.31 KD MVP performance could pave over. They started strong, in typical Toronto fashion. They looked alive against Carolina, confident, decisive, on the same page. Except for dealership S&D, which has plagued them since it was added to the pool. Joe Deceives played like a star. The star that they built their team around. 1.31, top lobby damage, commanding in all the respawns. But then, the question, as old as time this entire season, is could Toronto Ultra do this against championship contenders? This time, it was Optic Texas in Winners Round 2. This series should have been competitive, but it really wasn't. Far from competitive. Toronto weren't just losing, they were unraveling in front of us. 100 point clubbed on Skyline, 6-1 on Rewind S&D, 3-0 on Protocol Control, a collective 0.72 KD, their worst of the season. They didn't just lose, the same questions got exposed. The structure that they are so famous for made them predictable, made them easy to read. It felt like they couldn't keep up with the faster teams, the teams who punish you with pace, teamwork and talent. When they dropped into the losers bracket, it wasn't about stats anymore, it was about identity. Against Vancouver, their rivals all season, they became a wall that they couldn't climb. It was a 3-0 sweep. Neptune, with a 1.42 KD, lighting the board like a flare over a sinking ship. On paper, Toronto is a title contending team, and social media was having a field day with this roster. Toronto's season ended not because they lacked talent, but some questions were the pace of that talent. Everyone saw it. Everyone talked about it. So how do you fix that? How do you fix pacing? How do you fix speed? Do you tear it all down? How do you make the same pieces move faster? Enter the Esports World Cup. The wildcard. Beans out, Abe in. A rookie with speed but limited experience. Think of who? Everybody expected Insight to go, not Beans. Instead, Toronto doubled down on the chemistry and leadership brought by Insight and not comfort. Abe and Joe Deceives on the SMGs. Kleenex moved to Flex. Insight main AR. But even then, Insight started pushing up the map. It wasn't the same Toronto anymore. Hardpoints were quicker, were faster. Their map pressure looked like it flipped overnight. It didn't feel like they were just being reactive anymore. It looked like they were being proactive. And for the first time in months, it looked like Toronto were having fun again. They didn't win a trophy, but they found something good. They found momentum. Momentum in pacing. Momentum in trust. Momentum in believing and watching that they could play loose and they could play to win by playing loose. And that's why EWC mattered. It didn't feel like EWC was a redemption, but it felt like it was an evolution for all the players involved. As the off-season hit, Toronto did what very few expected. They didn't rebuild completely, but they redefined. Ultra was gone. Koi was born. Canadian discipline meets Spanish fire. They kept their core three, Joe Deceives, Insight, Kleenex, and brought in Real, the MVP and superstar of the Miami Heretics. Real didn't play like a replacement. He plays like the catalyst that Toronto will need for next season. Real ranks top 20 in kills per 10 minutes. He posted a 1.07 hardpoint KD overall. He's one of the best non-traded kills, which means his pure efficiency with speed. You pair that with Joe Deceives, one of the league's most aggressive players, and you get something special. You get speed with precision. You get hive mind. This is what the Koi era represents. Not rebuilding, but rebirth. From border issues to chemistry reset, from heartbreak to hunger. They've been doubted before. They've been dismantled before. But you know what? Now, Toronto look dangerous again. Now, the only question I have left is this. It's not if they can consistently compete with Optic, LAT, Vegas FaZe. But how fast can they show up to Sundays? Every Sunday at events. Facelift or rebirth? What do you guys see?